Right, good morning everyone, and thanks for joining us to talk through the Broken Reconfiguration Feasibility Study. My name's Daniel Irwin and I work with Sequana Partners as a project director on the Broken Reconfiguration Feasibility Study, working on behalf of the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, and also working with Golden Murray Water on this important community project. I'd also just like to welcome today from Sequana, John Davison and Kate Kernigan, who are supporting on this project as well. Thanks, John. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, which for me is the lands of the Yorta Yorta people, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people that may be here today. I'd also just like to acknowledge that the project is situated across the lands of both the Yorta Yorta people and the lands of the Taungurung people. Thanks, John. So today, in terms of the agenda, we were just wanting to cover through and provide a little bit of background to the Broken system, and I guess the reason for the Broken Reconfiguration Feasibility Study coming about and the origins of that. Talk through what the feasibility study is all about. Talk about the success criteria for the study, and most importantly, how we would like to get engagement from the community and water users throughout the life of this project. Really important for us that this is a community-driven process with strong input throughout the whole project. So we'll talk about the opportunities for that to occur as we go through. In terms of the objectives, it's really important for us to be able to provide that background that I referenced just as to the origins of the study and give people an understanding as to the starting point for the reconfiguration feasibility study. Want to ensure that there's a clear line of sight to the project timelines and really highlight, I guess, where that opportunity exists for community input throughout and influence over the project outcomes. We'll talk about how the project principles and criteria are being developed to help us assess any options that come out throughout these type of conversations with the community. And also, I guess, as we'll reference several times throughout this presentation, really it's about seeking that input from the community to help guide the study. As we continue to go, this is all about trying to help identify options that suit community needs as it relates to the Broken system. So just touching on the timelines, I guess, this project has been running since mid-2023, and really we're getting to the stage now where we are looking to start to engage out into the community to help identify really the fundamentals of what this study needs to cover from a community perspective. So getting that early input from the community to help us really drive what will come through the identification of the options, which is that sort of stage 3 blocks there, as we move into assessing the options, which is stage 4, and then how we bring it all together in the mid part of 2024. So as you can sort of see, there's 5 sort of circle dots there. Those relate to the consultative committee meeting dates. So there has been a consultative committee that's been established to help guide the project. But obviously, as we get into that, it's also about how we broaden that engagement out into the community and ensure that there are clear avenues for community to have their input and say throughout the process. But this just gives you an idea as to exactly when and what the project will be up to over the next 6 months. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking through the study background. So really important, I guess, to understand the origins of how we've arrived where we have today. The system overview, obviously the map that's shown there on the right is an overview of the entire Broken system. I guess importantly to note that the study area for this particular package of work really covers off on the Broken River from Lake Nillakooti through to where it joins the Goulburn at Shepparton, and then the upper Broken Creek from Casey's Weir to Wagga Randall Weir. So that component there will be the focus of the study area. Obviously, as you move down into the lower Broken Creek, that section becomes part of the Golden Murray Irrigation District, and so is outside effectively the scope of this reconfiguration project. In more recent times, so between 2020 and 2022, there was quite an extensive review done on the Broken system. So that was completed in partnership with the department and with Golden Murray Water, and also included a project steering group made up of 7 local entitlement holders. There was also participation from the Victorian Environmental Water Holder, North East Water, and Golden Broken CMA as part of that process. So in total, there was around 23 meetings of the project steering group, and they were really looking to, I guess, understand the challenges faced by the Broken system over more recent years. As part of that process, the project steering group identified a range of possible actions that needed to be undertaken in the system, and identified, I guess, 2 key issues. So the first of which was that the Broken system has become an annual system. And what they mean by that is it is very heavily reliant on unregulated inflows downstream of Lake Nilakudi to help meet the demands. The catchment in terms of area is only 5% of the Broken Basin, but obviously that 5% is the dominant wet part of the catchment. Just in terms of size is quite a small catchment in land mass. So, being an annual system, it is heavily reliant on what comes into the storage, and we'll highlight, I guess, some of the impacts of that as we see the variability in allocations that can occur year to year. And the other part of those findings was that climate change is intensifying the impacts on water availability. And certainly as Broken system users, you will have experienced that in the last 10 years, especially by way of the allocations that have been received, and importantly, the timing of those allocations as well. So as a result of that Broken system review, there was ultimately 7 recommendations that the project steering group made through to the Victorian Water Minister. One of those recommendations, recommendation 7, was to undertake a feasibility study of how the Broken system could be reconfigured, including the potential for a reduced irrigation footprint, so that local community can understand long-term options for the future of the valley with reduced water availability. And that's fundamentally, obviously, what this feasibility study is focused on, that recommendation 7. The first recommendations, so recommendations 1 to 6, look to provide entitlement holders with the ability to make the most of available water. So they would look at different things like trade rules, greater education and awareness of different management tools available to customers, those type of activities. However, it was seen that in the first instance, this reconfiguration work should be completed because it may help then inform recommendations 1 to 6. So at the moment, we're focused on the reconfiguration activities with potentially some further work to look at recommendations 1 to 6 further down the track. The type of information that the project steering group had developed throughout that sort of 2020 to 22 period that informed ultimately their recommendations, we'll work through on the next few slides. So this is just to give you a bit of a snapshot as to the data that has informed those recommendations, and we effectively are using these as our starting point to build on and generate the reconfiguration options. So it's not that we're going back testing or reproducing this material. It's really using these as our starting point. This graph many people may have seen previously, but just provides an overview of that impact of reducing inflows into the catchment that the project steering group referenced. You can sort of see there that post 2004-05, there has been a bit of a step change in terms of reduction of average inflows. And to put a number on that equates to about a 42% reduction in inflows since 2004-05. The other thing that you can note there is the increased variability with which it's occurring. So very dry years, and then on the flip side of that, some very wet years as well. The project steering committee also started to look at the projections of what may occur going forward. And so this graph is just trying to present, I guess, some different scenarios in terms of climate change impacts and the impacts that that may have on average annual stream flows. So there's a high, medium, and a low scenario in terms of change. So under a high level of change occurring, you can see that would result in around a 50% reduction from the year 2000 or thereabouts in terms of the average annual stream flows. I guess the other thing to note on this graph is that you can see the post-97 conditions line that intersects there, shows that already the catchment is experiencing, quite significant change already. The other information, I guess, that the project steering committee looked at related to the land use and the water use that's occurring within the project area. So you can see there on the right, just in terms of land use, a lot of cropping and grazing activity undertaken, definitely some permanent plantings, horticulture type activities, and, small pockets of dairy activity as well. The graph on the left is talking about the water use associated with each of those different segments from a land use point of view. In terms of the entitlement that's held within the project area, this is just really trying to summarise the type of entitlements that are held. So there's about 17.6 gigalitres of high reliability water share within the system. Customers have the ability to carry over water, albeit it's limited at the moment to 50% of the high reliability water share. More than half of the water share holders own less than 10 megalitres in high reliability water share. And then of the larger water users, there's 45 entitlement holders who hold more than 100 megalitres. And that makes up in total 77% of the privately held high reliability water share volume. I guess, one of the points to note is that irrigation use currently averages less than 50% of the water allocated in each year. And there are certainly, specific reasons around that. And some of the customers that we've spoken to have cited confidence in terms of allocations and timings as one of those reasons that people are trying to, at the moment, diversify their business operations and potentially have less reliance on irrigation in some instances. This graph here is really showing just what I've described there. So what you can see here is the sum of the column in each year. So we're working from 2015-16 through to the year 2020-21. The size of that column represents the amount of water that was available for allocation and use in any given year. So in 2015-16, you can see that just under 9 gigalitres of water was available for use. And then the breakup of that in terms of the different colours as you work bottom to top. The bottom sort of figure there, 3.8 in 2015-16, represents the use that occurred in that particular year. Then the 1.2 represents the trade that occurred out of the system. 3.3 represents the volume that was carried over. And then the 0.5 in that year represents water that was written off. So it wasn't used and wasn't able to be carried over. So again, for me, you can see the variability that's occurring year on year, with a peak usage in that period of time of 5.3 gigalitres against an available amount of just over 18 gigalitres. And you can see by way of variability, I guess, that 2 years of 100% of high reliability and 100% of low, dropping in 2018 to 37% of high, and then dropping further to 2% allocation against high reliability water share only 2 years later. So again, back to the project steering group's sort of finding of it being an annual storage, I guess that's really highlighted in these graphs as well. So ultimately, the case for change, I guess, and the reason that we're out engaging with the community at the moment is that there is evidence of a decline in system reliability, and that was clearly established through the 2022 review. I think the information that was developed suggested that the reliability of the entitlement had shifted from around 89 years in 100, where you would have access to 100% high reliability water share, had decreased to around 79% in terms of its reliability. As part of the broken system review, it's recommended that this reconfiguration process occur to identify options that must be done to support the community to plan for reduced water availability in the future and really build resilience, I guess, to that variability that is evident at the moment. So the study is starting to consider the changes that could be made to how the system's configured to better meet the region's long-term needs. And that's where we're at the moment, asking community for their input as to exactly what are some of those options that should be considered as part of this study. And Kate will talk later, just about exactly how that opportunity exists for input. As we look through the different reconfiguration options, obviously they'll need to be analysed and understood from a socio-economic perspective and what other benefits they could provide. And certainly there'll be a process to go through of testing those with stakeholders and community to make sure that they reflect, I guess, what the community is seeking, given the challenges that are presenting. So I guess that information, as I mentioned at the start, was really about trying to identify the basis for, where the reconfiguration project is starting from. And now the next few slides, I guess, are talking about the steps that we're taking to try and develop up those options. So first and foremost, there is a governance arrangement that sits across the project, right from the Victorian Minister for Water. We have a project oversight group that includes Goulburn Water and the department. We have the consultative committee in place, and we'll talk that through a little bit on the next couple of slides. Sequana as a project team working with Goulburn Water, DECA and the consultative committee, and engaging out with the community as well. So all in that governance structure have very key roles to play. The consultative committee is a group made up of 7 community landowners. And really the purpose of the consultative committee is about drawing on their local knowledge and experience, making sure that there are fair and accurate reflections of views held within the community coming through to the project team, to the department and to Goulburn Water, and really acting as a bit of a sounding board and testing board for the viability of reconfiguration concepts that would later be tested with the community. Really keen, I guess the committee are helping us at the moment talk through how best to engage, how best to broaden, I guess, the input from the community. So, whilst we have the committee in place, certainly it's not intended that the committee are the sole voice for the community. Our role is to get out there and make sure that we're hearing all sorts of views and ideas from that broader community group. Next, John. So currently the consultative committee is made up, as I mentioned, of 7 community members who you can see listed there on the left. And we thank them for volunteering and applying to be part of the committee and for their input to date. The Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority obviously sit in as part of the membership of that committee. And then we also have some observers who come and offer their insights and experiences to the process as well. So Victorian Farmers Federation, represented by Richard Anderson, the Benalla Rural City Council, Greater Shepparton City Council, and the Victorian Environmental Water Holder also participate in the consultative committee. In terms of the success criteria, and how we're looking to, I guess, A, identify, but then B, test reconfiguration concepts. I guess conceptually this model tries to put it in diagrammatic form. Obviously the project steering group and the community themselves have sort of identified that there are challenges associated with the broken system at the moment, and identified that there is a desire to move to an alternate at a point in the future. And so really this reconfiguration process is all about identifying what those change proposals might be that will take us from the challenges experienced today, a future sort of that's expressed through the identification of different success criteria. So how do we achieve that change is identifying options which can help us transition, I guess, to that success criteria, identify the application of project principles, and really working towards identification and application of different option assessment criteria. So the project principles by which the project is operating, effective stakeholder engagement, no surprise that that's first on the list. This really is, a critical component of this whole project. The purpose of identifying a reconfiguration, sort of a range of options, is around ensuring that it can produce the support and transition mechanisms to help the community address the challenges of the broken system. So really important that it involves that high quality stakeholder engagement and input along the way. Making sure that there is best practice, so technical rigor, making sure that the options that are proposed can be delivered, integrated thinking, and risk-based analysis. We need to ensure that what is proposed are real options, so it's no good ultimately, at the end of the day, having options that simply can't be delivered because they either are a long way out of alignment with current policy settings, or they're not feasible for, cost benefit reasons, or, from a funder's perspective, they're not likely to be suitable for different funding streams. So the options that we present have to be real, and we have to test them through that options analysis process. And of course, ensuring ethical processes is the heart of what we do as well. So the success criteria that I spoke about, what are we trying to achieve in the long term? We have to make sure that the options we're putting forward are achieving multiple benefits. So that's environmental benefits, cultural benefits, as well as supporting the agriculture sort of sector as well. Need to be future ready. So we've spoken a little bit about the climate change impacts that are being experienced, and so we need to ensure that I guess the options identified, are able to, I guess, withstand or be tested against some of that change that's likely to occur in the future. It must have community acceptance, obviously, is a key success criteria. Obviously, we're looking, the community in itself and the project steering group have acknowledged there needs to be changed, and then value for money obviously needs to be present as well in terms of the options that are presented. So I guess we go through a process of identifying a whole range of options, but then we need to understand, how will we measure whether they are feasible at the end of the day. And I guess just, at a high level, effectiveness is the key. So how well do the options, support the achievement of the success criteria? From an efficiency point of view, what resources and inputs are required to achieve the specified outcomes? And then the appropriateness of the different options. So are they appropriate, an appropriate response to achieving the desired outcomes? And ultimately, we've developed up a series, the next slide, John, of assessment criteria that will help us really test each of those groupings of options or potential solutions or offerings that may help achieve the success criteria. So as we look through each of the options, I guess this is the type of assessment criteria that we would be testing it against. So does it support a sustainable agricultural sector future? From a social perspective and risk perspective, what are the benefits? What are the pros? What are the cons? Is it in alignment with regulatory policy at the moment? And if not, to what extent? or if so, to what extent? Stock and domestic supplies, how does this provide benefit from a stock and domestic perspective? Really around the reliability and access to stock and domestic supplies during particularly those drier years. Are there cultural benefits? The value for money we've touched on. What are the overall impacts and benefits of the different options? How does it support the environment and enhance environmental values? Or are there risks from an environmental point of view? How robust is it to future change, including climate change and reduced inflows? And then again, the assessment criteria will definitely pick up on the community acceptance side of things as well. So the option review process that we are going, through is, and Kate will touch on this again in a second, but really it's about identifying the different options, and that's a community-led option identification process, and really where we're up to at the moment. Once we have those options, we would undertake an initial assessment against the criteria that we've just discussed. That will create a bit of a short list, if you like, of options that will progress through, look at how we could apply them in a practical sense. And then once we've done that, undertake a detailed assessment, a technical review, and a cost benefit analysis on the different options. Obviously, once we've developed up some of that supporting information, then really important that we come back out and discuss that through with the community to determine the extent to which it sort of supports the community objectives as well. And then with the final step being that we produce, ultimately the feasibility study report itself. So that's just been a bit of an overview in terms of the background and then the process that we're working through and how we would measure success and how we would ultimately, I guess, test some of the options against certain criteria to determine, how well they're suited to achieving the benefits of the study. Next, I'll hand over to Kate, who's going to just take us through the engagement process with the community and water users. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Daniel. So the first thing I want to do is just jump back into that timeline that Daniel was speaking about and just pull out a couple of junctions there that we've identified as being important places to stop and give a little bit more focus to listening to community and inviting views. So the first one that we're sort of coming to the end of at the moment is this initial listening to understand what is the priority here. If the feasibility study's been put together at the request of community who said we need to go away and understand some of these options and how feasible they are, there's no point the team doing that work if we don't have a really solid understanding of the pain points, what the issues are that need to be addressed, how different people are using water, what their practical workarounds are with the way that they manage their water use and operations. So this phase that we're in now has been a real eye-opener and some targeted listening. Some of the information we've heard has been consistent with what we've understood or what the previous Broken study has told us, but there's been some fresh perspective and some different emphasis come through. So it's been really helpful to us. And then the team goes away, makes sure that there's an alignment between the work that we're doing and the steer that community have given us. And then we go back out and sense check that again once the options have started to take shape. We have a better understanding of how suites of options might need to sit together, how combined approach might have different impacts within the system. So we're looking at early next year, sort of the first quarter, end of the first quarter, going back out and playing back what we heard and what we've done with that information and seeing if we're on the right track or if we need to keep refining. So I'll move to the next slide if we can. I just want to highlight for everybody the Your Say website that sits on the Goulburn Murray Water website. So there's a project page there. It looks like the one on the screen. And that is where we update all the information that we have as and when it becomes available. So, for example, the recent face-to-face drop-in sessions that we held at the McCowan Hub were posted on that website. When we have consultative committee meetings, we make sure that we put a summary up that outlines what was discussed, what we heard, and what the next steps will be, just so that people can maintain visibility of the project as it steers along and where the focus will be. The other thing that we're planning to upload onto that page, if we go one slide further, is it's called Social Pinpoint. It's a geographical map that allows you to drop a comment at any point along the project alignment to say your focus needs to be here, or if you're considering water use in this part of the alignment, you need to really understand X about seasonality or about fish passage or whatever the case may be. So we're just going through and dropping some pins onto that map on the basis of what we heard at the drop-in sessions to try and give people an understanding of how that works. And then very shortly, that'll go up live on the Your Say website for people to drop their own comments on directly, and we can just keep building the picture. And the great beauty of having that map there is that you can see what other people have dropped. You can either agree with it, it can prompt you to provide further explanation if you've got some more insights that you think add value to the original comment, all of that kind of thing. And it kind of helps with this building of a rounded understanding of the system and the considerations. So using that social pinning map is a really great way to stay in touch with the team between more formal engagement sessions. We have a database of people that we've collected over our activities around the traps in this sort of quarter before Christmas. And we do intend to keep in touch, but certainly there aren't specific junctions where we're available to speak to and then we're not available. I want to make it really clear that at any point in time, if you have an idea or if you've heard something that you want to check with us, that door is open the whole time. So to that end, not just insights on water use and the system. If you've seen engagement done well, or if you've got an idea about where community might have an existing grouping of interested parties, for example, we reached out to private pipeline owners and some syndicates, to GMW customers. We've used web advertisements, social media, we've used customer emails and text messages. We've tried a broad range of avenues, public events, to try and reach people. But if you think that there's an opportunity for us to talk to some community or water users that might be very interested, please let me know. I'd love that feedback. And also, if you think there's an opportunity to generate some awareness via other avenues, for example, we have been speaking with the VFF to see if they can help us a little bit in just making sure that those who might be interested in contributing to this study find out about it in a timely way, so that their insights can be included and help shape what we're doing. So I'll leave this slide here and just leave with you an open invitation to reach out to us. Use the BRFS Your Say page that was linked there. It'll also, we're housing this video on the BRFS page, so you've probably found the site already if you're accessing this video. But yeah, just an open invitation to keep the conversation open.
Very good. Thank you, Kate. And so just in terms of next steps, as Kate has just invited us, really keen for people to add their sort of suggestions or ideas to the study or website. So if you have any ideas or options that you see as to how the broken system could be reconfigured to support any of those success criteria that we had spoken through, really interested to hear those options. And then we'll be doing the work that we've spoken about in the background in terms of the assessment of those various options, working through how we can group those options in different parts of the network to try and maximise the benefits and work towards the success criteria that's been identified. That will all then lead into those next rounds of formal community engagement that Kate's spoken about in 2024. But yes, please don't wait for those invites. If there are ideas, thoughts, questions, queries, please drop us a line via the website, and happy to work through those. So thank you all for listening in, taking the time. Really keen to engage with people as we continue through this. And yes, hope to speak to everyone soon. Thank you all.